Okay, this is the target 3B slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines retake video. So let me grab a pen. Here we go, pen. Right here. And we're asked to find the, we're given 2 points A and B. And there are 2 points on this line AB. And then we have another line M. And now these two lines are not the same, they're two different lines. Okay, and the question is we have to find the slope of AB and the slope of line M. So to find the slope of AB, I use the 2 points that they give us on A and B. So I'm going to use the 10,8 and the 15,1. And I'm going to use the slope formula. Now remember, M stands for slope, and the slope formula is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So right here is my first point, so this is x from the first point. So remember the first number listed is the x value, and the second number listed is the y value. So this is x from point 1, and this is y from point 1. And this is x from 2, and this is y from point 2. So I'm going to plug those in. So y2 is 1. Now the minus comes from the formula, so I need to put that minus in. And then 8 is y1. And then that goes over x2, which is 15. Then minus from the formula, and then my x1, which is 10. And 1 minus 8 is negative 7, and 15 minus 10 is 5. So the slope of AB, so slope of line AB, is negative 7 over 5. Now we answered part of question 1. The second part of question 1 is to find the slope of line M. So remember, the slope of line M, the point slope formula for, the slope intercept form of a line is y equals mx plus b. So this number M, which is a letter, but the M, which is in front of the x, is the slope. So when I look over here, this is what's in front of the x. So that means the slope of that line is 7/5. And actually, let me write it this way. We're going to write the slope of line M is 7/5. Okay, so that's question 1. Now question 2 says, what can we determine about AB and line M? So the thing is, if two lines have the same slope, they're parallel. So let's just write this somewhere. I'm going to write it in purple. Actually, you know what? I'm going to write it in yellow up here at the top. Okay, so if the lines are parallel, they have equal slopes. So an example would be negative 2/3 for one slope. Can't really read that. Negative 2/3 for the one slope, and negative 2/3 for the slope of the second line. Those two things are equal. That would make the two lines parallel because the slopes are equal. Now perpendicular, and again, perpendicular, they have negative reciprocal slopes. So the slopes are negative reciprocals. Okay, so again, negative reciprocals. Okay, so example would that be if I had the first one, negative 2/3, Then the second one would be the negative 2/3 flipped over, which would be 3/2 instead of 2/3. And this one's negative, and this one would be positive, so that's negative reciprocals. So if either of those two things are happening, then they're parallel or perpendicular. If neither of those two things are happening, then it's neither. They're not parallel or perpendicular. So in this case, we have 7/5. I grab the color. We have 7/5 for this slope, and this is negative 7/5. Are they equal? And they are not, because one is negative and one is positive. So that means that they're not parallel. So I'm going to write that down. They're not parallel because the slopes are not equal. And they're not equal because one's negative and one's positive. Now I'm not going to write that down, but that's why they're not equal. Now they're also not negative reciprocals. Now one is positive and one is negative, which is what you need for negative reciprocals, but you also need the reciprocal part, meaning that when you flip this over, you get this. So when you flip over 7/5, you get 5/7, and this is still 7/5, not 5/7. So they're not reciprocals. So that means they're not perpendicular because they are not negative reciprocals, as they are not negative reciprocals. So they are neither. Parallel or perpendicular. Okay, and then I just want to show you what perpendicular lines look like. So here's my graph, and perpendicular lines look like this. Oops. Here's this red line. And then I have this green line that goes through it like this, and they make right angles. That's what it means to be perpendicular. Alright. For number 3, we have this line L, and gee, it didn't look like this is showing it. But line L is this picture in the graph below. So this green line here is line L. And line M is this line with this equation. So we have to determine if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay, so we're going to look at line L. So we're going to find the slope of line L. Remember, slope is rise over run. So if I look at this picture, and I should grab another color, I think. To get from this point to this point, I want to go from left to right. So it looks like I go over 1, 2, 3, and I go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is rise. I'm rising 4. And I'm running 3, so the slope of line L is 4/3. Okay, now the slope of line M is this. Remember, again, it's a number in front of the x when it's in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So the number in front of the x, which is negative 3/4, is my slope. So the slope is negative 3/4. So looking at these two, Are they equal? No, they're not. One is 4 over 3 and the other is negative 3 over 4. So they're definitely not equal. Are they negative reciprocals? And the answer is yes, they are. If I flip over 4/3, I get 3/4, and I change the sign. This was positive, so this one should be negative, and it is. So when I flip 4/3 over and change the sign, I get negative 3/4. So I can say line L is perpendicular, and remember that upside down capital T means perpendicular, is perpendicular to line M because their slopes are negative reciprocals. Okay, so number 4, we have this purple line Q, and we have line P, which is a line that goes through those 2 points there. So let's find the slope of line Q. So slope of line Q. And again, that's rise over run. So I have to go from left to right. So it looks like I go down. I go down how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. I go down 4 and I go over 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, over 10. So down 4 over 10. Now that's not reduced. I actually have to reduce that. What number goes into both 4 and 10 evenly? And it's 2. So I'm going to divide top and bottom by 2. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. So my answer is negative 2/5 for the slope of line Q. Okay, now in red, I'm going to find the slope of Q. Sorry, line P. And that's also rise over run, but we're going to use the slope formula for it. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is x1 and y1 and x2 and y2. So I get negative 8 minus, now the minus from the formula, but then y1 is actually minus 3. So I have two minuses right next to each other. All over x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 4. And do you see that I have a minus here? Well, a minus actually gives me a plus. So I have negative 8 plus 3, which is negative 5, over 6 minus 4, which is 2. And if you look at that, these slopes are not equal because one's 5/2 and one is negative 2/5, and they're not negative reciprocals either. So that means that they're not parallel or perpendicular. So I'm going to say the slopes aren't equal. So they're not parallel. And the slopes are not negative reciprocals. So they are not perpendicular. So they are neither. They're neither parallel nor perpendicular. Okay, so for number 5, we have an equation of a line. We have to write an equation of a line that goes through this particular point here. Oops. It goes through this point here and is perpendicular to this line here. Okay, so first I have to find the slope of this line. So the slope of that line is 5, because again this is in y equals mx plus b form, so the number in front of the x, which is 5, is the slope. So the slope of this line is 5. Now I'm going to do my equation in red. So I'm going to use the point 5, -4, and my slope has to be the negative reciprocal of 5. Well, this is 5 over 1. So when I flip that over, I get -1 over 5. So when I flip it over, I get 1 over 5, and I change the sign. So I'm going to use the slope -1/5, and my point 5, -4. Now this is my x value, and this is my y value. And I'm going to use the equation I know, which is y equals mx plus b. So where I see a y, I'm going to replace it with -4. And where I see an m, I'm going to replace it with -1/5. And where I see an x, I'm going to replace it with 5, and then plus b. Now I have to multiply this together, -1/5 times 5. So I'm going to turn 5 into a fraction by making it 5 over 1. And then I just multiply straight across. So I get -4 equals -5 over 5 plus b. So I get -4 equals -1 plus b. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and I get -3. So my answer is b equals -3. And I'm sorry, that's not my answer, that's just b. Okay, that is not the answer, that's just b. Now I have to write the equation of the line. So my answer is going to look something like this. It's not this, but it's going to look like that. So it's y equals m, but here's my m, -1/5, x, plus my b, but my b is right here. What's b? -3. So this is the equation of the line. Y equals -1/5 x minus 3. Okay, and here's the last problem, number 6. We have an equation. Okay, problem number 6. So again, we have to find the equation of a line that's parallel to this line, and it goes through this point. So the slope of this line, remember, is just what the number in front of the x, which is -7/2. So that says m equals -7/2. So my line is parallel, and parallel lines have equal slopes, so I'm going to use that slope, -7/2, along with the point that they give us, -2/5. And then our favorite equation of a line, which is y equals mx plus b. So remember, this is x and this is y. I'm going to replace y with 5 and m with -2. And then, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. I'm going to replace m with actually m, and m is -7/2. So -7/2 times my x, and my x is a -2 plus b. And I'm going to turn this into a fraction, and I'm going to multiply across. So I have 5 equals 14 over 2 plus b. So I get 5 equals 7 plus b. And that 5 is looking rather sloppy, so let me fix that. Not that that one's any better either. So 5 and 5. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides, and I get b equals -2. So the equation of my line is y equals my m, which was -7/2 x, plus b, and my b is -2. So y equals -7/2 x minus 2. Okay, so that's it for the review problems. Now you have your practice problems, your U-tries. Remember, you have to show these to a math lab teacher or your geometry teacher. And then there is a slip that they need to sign saying that you've done these practice problems and you got them correctly. If you don't have that slip, your teacher will not be accepting your retake. So make sure you get that slip signed. Okay, so here is problems 1 and 2. Problem number 3. Problem number 4. Problem 5. And problem 6. Good luck!